Okay, welcome to Grant and Guest episode 2 with Sam Anderson. Sam, what's up?
What up?
What up? What up? So Sam and I worked together at camp back in 2015. A lot of you guys probably don't know him, but I promise you that he's just as famous as anybody else that I will have on here. But I wanted to have Sam on because Sam is one of the most unique, creative individuals that I've ever met in my life. If you know Sam, you will never meet another Sam in your entire lifetime. And I am very thankful to have him in my corner no matter what. He's been really supportive in this whole process of me getting this started and just supportive of me over the course of the last few years. But Sam is a huge movie guy. Tell me and tell everybody else about Letterbox'd and how that works. Because I think that's such a cool concept. So from what I understand about Letterbox'd, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so
yeah.
From what I understand about it, it's essentially like what I'm doing right now. Like I am just Joe Schmo. I'm a regular everyday person, and on Letterboxd, it kind of gives you the opportunity to share your opinions, but on movies. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a fan of movies and stuff. But about 2-3 years ago, I started following more random people on Twitter that also just the only thing we had in common was movies. Like I follow a bunch of Cowboys fans, Celtics fans I've never met. And then so I also have a bunch of friends on there that just care about movies. That's all we have in common. And so I found out about this app that everyone was using. And basically it's like a social media of sorts for just movies. So you've got pretty much every movie to ever exist, short movies, old movies, like as far back as the 1930s, everything like that. And so you just log movies into it. And when you watch one, you can rate it and review it. Everybody rates pretty much what they watch. It's in like 5-star rating.
Okay.
And then I'll review them if they're bad enough or good enough, or if it's just like I feel like it. So
Yeah.
I just checked the other day. I think I've seen 145 different movies this year.
Oh my gosh. In a year?
I reviewed
like you're talking from like January to today, May. We're recording on May 2nd. You have watched 140 something movies.
Yeah. So
dude, that's insane.
And so yeah, I work 4 10-hour shifts, so I get 3 days off. So I got a lot of time to kill. But yeah, and so I think of those 145, I've probably reviewed around 60.
Okay.
And I mean, nothing really long unless it's like something that just like blew me out of the water that I've never seen before, stuff like that. And so basically you can follow people, you can see like there's a popular page with like what's popular with your group of friends, like whether it's a new movie or sometimes like movies go around on Twitter, like people like a couple months ago were rewatching like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. And then you see a bunch of your friends watching that and it's like, oh, I want to watch it and see what I think about them because I haven't seen them in 10 years, whatever.
Right.
And so it's just like, so you can just follow people, you can read the reviews, like people, you can make lists on there, like your top 10, name the list, whatever you want, make rankings of like directors, that kind of thing. So it's just kind of like, I mean, you can comment on people, but there's no like, it's not like,
it's not like Twitter. It's not like Twitter where you're like retweeting or.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
And you can share people's like posts, like copy a link and share them on Twitter if you want, but on there it's basically just, oh, let's see what this random person or my friend or this popular person's about the same movie that I watched, that kind of thing.
So I am curious about this just because I know you. Is that what led to the Pirates of the Caribbean tattoo? Was rewatching it? Or
actually I didn't jump on that trend. I was rewatching other stuff. But the tattoo just came because that was my favorite. I watched it. It came out in 2003, so I was 8. Back then my dad used to watch movies, anything PG-13 or higher before you could watch it. I me or my brother or sister could watch it. And so I would go in there to get water sometimes, and the way our living room was set up is the couch had its back to like one of the entrance from the kitchen, and so I would like sneak behind and watch it, like my dad falls asleep, like he'll fall asleep during like any point. I mean, every time I've ever gone to a movie theater with my dad, he's fallen asleep in the movie. So chances are I would like kind of crawl behind the couch and watch it. And so he just happened to be watching Pirates of the Caribbean. He got like a pirated no pun
Yeah,
intended,
there you go.
pirated version from like somebody at work and was watching it. And so I
Yeah.
snuck behind and I like laid on the floor and watched the whole thing. And it's like, there's no chance he didn't know I was there,
Right.
but whatever. And so
Yeah.
from then on, I guess he deemed it was fine for us to watch. And I probably watch that thing once a week from ages like 8 to 12 at least. I
Dang.
mean, I would religiously watch that first one. And like every year that the new one came out, that's what I would get for my birthday present from my family.
Nice.
They'd buy me like
Nice.
the movie or like the
Yeah.
toys from it, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where, I mean, I've actually got 2 Pirates of the Caribbean
Is
tattoos
that
now.
is that the first? Because I personally can remember mine. Was that the first PG-13 movie you remember watching?
Whew. Well, yeah, because I think the first 2 Star Wars movies are PG.
Yeah.
So I think it probably is the first one I can remember watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine, and don't fact check me on this because I could be very wrong, but I'm pretty sure the first Spider-Man was PG-13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very first one, and that is the first PG-13 movie I
Yeah.
remember watching.
It's so weird
Like,
thinking about that as like kids.
I
Like,
know.
you're
Isn't
like
that
so
crazy?
cool watching it.
I know it really did, and like now obviously like specifically with the Spider-Man stuff, they've watered that stuff down so much to where they can try to get as many people as possible into the theaters, and I'm sure that a couple of them probably had PG ratings over the course of however many they made. I'm not the biggest movie buff or anything like that, but it is crazy when those specific things like stick out to you. Like I remember in second grade, we were watching Jumanji, and they sent out like a letter to parents and everything like that because it had a PG rating, and my mom was and shout out to her, like I knew what she was doing, and I understand why she was doing that, because it was like it is technically parental guidance, and she was my
Yeah.
parent and she couldn't be there. So I remember not being able to watch that, but then I watched it years later and I was like, this would have scared the crap out of me at 8
Oh,
years old. I
dude.
would have not slept. Like it
Oh
was
my
second
God.
grade, man.
I think
Like,
that was the first time I remember being terrified in a movie, was when that dude they had the boy turn into the monkey boy
oh
or
my
whatever.
gosh, man.
And then when they were trapped under the car with the stampede,
Yes.
oh, that
Yes.
movie's terrifying for
It
like
really is.
a little kid. And
Oh
they
my
like
gosh.
kids are watching it and junk.
Yeah.
I was like,
And then
that was
like
the first time I remember it.
obviously they did the remake and everything with like The Rock and Kevin Hart and everything like that. But like that one they made specifically to have like some funny aspects of it. There was nothing funny from the first Jumanji,
No.
and which is crazy because you would think, I mean, that's Robin Williams in that, right? You would
Yeah,
think
he
there
plays
would
like
be
2 characters.
something funny in there, and there wasn't. But
No, it was just pure like nightmare fuel,
I
dude.
know. And
No.
at the same time that Robin Williams is putting out stuff like Flubber and everything like that, and it's just like funny, goofy movies, and then you got him in Jumanji, terrifying, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids.
Yeah,
But I don't know. Anyway,
it's nuts.
so I want to like kind of transition into this a little bit. So obviously we talked about Letterboxd and kind of what you're doing on there. And 145 movies is a lot. How, if you had to guess, how many would you say you've watched in your lifetime?
Oh,
Just guess, just ballpark it.
a few thousand,
That's
for sure. I mean, because I know last year I watched 300 movies in the year.
yeah.
This year I was like, it's like such like a loser goal, but I was like, I want to watch on average a movie a day this year. Try to do that. Try to do 365. So
I had a goal of running a mile a day this year, and I think I'm on like 7 total miles, so I'm doing great. But
hey, there you
I'm
go. Well,
moving.
look at your goal versus my goal.
No, but I mean,
It requires me to open my
but
eyes. You have to like get out.
it's what you're interested in, and when it's something that you're passionate about and something that you care about, it's like, yeah, you're gonna set kind of like a an ambitious goal. I used to be a runner, believe it or not, and now it's like it's hard for me to get back into it. But something like movies that's just so I don't know, you just do it to kind of like relieve stress, and it's just kind of like a getaway or an escape for an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the movie. So you've seen thousands of movies. I want to hear, probably, I want to see, or I want to hear your, the 5 best movies that you think that you have ever seen in your life. And this is not off of like the Forbes list ranking or anything like that, but I want to hear the 5 best movies that you think that you have seen in your life. And I've got mine.
Okay,
Mine are in no particular order though. So if you want to give yours in order, you definitely can, but mine are in no particular order.
Okay, so is this 5 best or my 5 favorite?
Let's go 5 best movies you've ever seen.
Okay, so I know number 1. After that, it's probably not ranked, but the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life is probably Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
Um, it's just because it's beautiful. Like it looks amazing. The music is perfect. The acting is amazing. The
Mhm.
story, the writing, everything. I watched that for the first time, I believe last year, the year before last, maybe 2019,
Yeah.
and I was just like, about 20 minutes into the movie, I said, I think this is the best thing I've ever seen. And then by the end, I was like, yeah, that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, it's not ranked, but I
Right.
know everybody has it. But The Godfather is
Yeah.
it's considered the best movie for a reason. And
Yeah.
lots of people prefer the second one, but I still think
I've
the
I've
first
heard
two.
that. I've heard that a lot. The only so like people go back and forth on that from what I've heard, but also the general consensus is that they never should have made a third one. I have not seen that one. I've obviously seen the first two, but I haven't seen the third one just because like I've heard so many like pop culture, people that I follow and everything talk about it. They talk about it on Part of My Take all the time about how it's awful. And so I just was like, yeah, I'm not gonna watch it.
I actually like the third one.
Okay.
I mean, it's not on par with the first two,
Right.
but I still don't think it's just like a pile of trash that people say it is. But
Right.
I think people think it's so bad because compared to the first two, which are like 10 out of 10s,
Right.
if it's like a 7 out of 10, it feels like a like 3 out of 10.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I feel like the problem that a lot of people have with it too is that most movies they don't want to see a third one. Like the first one
Yeah,
is really good, second one's usually also pretty good, and then by the third one it's like okay, like it's kind of
I
played.
know. It's something about that third movie that just no
Yeah,
one can get right.
yeah. I will say I think Toy Story 3 is fire. That might be controversial, but
Oh yeah,
Toy Story
no.
3 is
Toy
fire.
Story
But
3 is amazing.
there,
Hey, the fourth one's even good.
the
So
fourth one is good. I actually when did that come out? A couple years ago?
yeah, I think 2019.
18,
Yeah.
19. I thought that one was pretty good too. Okay, so Apocalypse Now, Godfather. Where are we going from there?
Um, probably. See, there's so many. I'd probably have to go by almost genre. Like, I
Right.
think so. I think the best. There's a movie called All That Jazz. It's a musical,
Okay.
kind of, but it's not like the normal musical because it's not. The dude's not. They're not singing songs about like falling in love and all this. It's about a
Right.
guy who has a director who's trying to make a movie or a musical or whatever, and he's like addicted to drugs and everything,
Okay.
and so he's also like killing himself by drinking and doing drugs and smoking and all that,
Awesome.
slowly killing himself
Yeah.
whether he realizes it or not.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not like a like
Like
Sound of Music. It's not a
right.
musical
Yeah.
you're gonna watch with the whole family for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's probably up there.
Okay, so that's
um
3-ish, maybe.
yeah, so
I know it's
yeah,
it's
'cause
tough to
I
try to give these in order because I'm like looking at my list and I'm like, I
yeah.
don't know how I could order these. But again, to clarify to anybody listening, it's like these are the 5 best movies that we personally have seen. Not necessarily our 5 favorite movies because we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's just like best for what it is. Like the acting's phenomenal, the writing's
Yeah.
phenomenal, like it just every aspect of it is really good. So sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, good.
You got 2 more.
So another one,
It is
yeah,
tough
because
with
I
the
mean,
genres too.
yeah, and so like I know you like told me about this heading into it, and I still like am like
Yeah.
struggling like to find because I know for sure some of I would say The Tree of Life is up there as well. I don't
Okay.
know if you've seen that. That
Uh,
was came out in 2011. It's
okay.
a director who's been around for years,
Okay.
but it's more because I think that one I would say is one of the best just because it kind of almost challenges what a movie should be because there's
Right.
little to no dialogue. Brad Pitt's in it; he does incredible, but
Hmm.
he even is barely in it as well. It has a lot of just like imagery
Yeah.
and a bunch of just every shot, every scene of it
Yeah.
has meaning behind it. But it
There was
feels
that so those movies with like no dialogue like that are always really interesting to me. Like what was the war movie a few years back? I think it was like 17 with that Harry Styles was actually in. It's
oh,
like
Dunkirk, yeah,
yeah,
Christopher
Dunkirk.
Nolan.
It's like like a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, this movie's so good." And like for me, like I was like, nobody talked in it. Like it was,
Yeah. Well, see, that's the way I used to
I
feel
mean,
as well.
everything's blowing up and everything like that, which I guess is cool to some people, but I was like, I didn't understand the historical significance of it either. So it's like, for me, not a big history buff, I was like, okay, this movie's just kind of
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely the Tree of Life definitely wouldn't be for for you probably, but I mean, and that's one of those movies where people give it either like a 1-star rating or a 5-star rating. Like
right.
people either absolutely hate it and turn it off, or
Yeah.
they watch it and they're just mesmerized by it. And I felt like it almost transcended just movie watching. Like you feel like you're part of it rather than watching it.
Right.
And then
Last
probably I gotta
Chapters.
shout out Star Wars. The original is my favorite. Like I do a Star Wars watch all of them probably once a year, if not once every 2 years at the
Yeah.
most. My wife had never seen Star Wars, so before Rise of Skywalker
Yeah.
came out, which by the way is the worst Star Wars movie ever made.
Good.
We watched all of them, and so everyone says 5 is the best, and rightly so. It's amazing, it's incredible, but I think the OG one, because it influenced not
You're
just
talking like the one that came out in like the 70s, like
yeah,
old.
1978, I believe. Just A New Hope. It's episode 4 now. At the time, it was just called Star Wars.
Gotcha. That I think honestly, like me being me and just being not like not OCD, but a little bit type A, like it's like that's the hardest part for me to get into Star Wars is like, okay, this is the first one we made, but it's episode 4. So it's like
Yeah.
for me,
See,
they
it's
just kind of lose me on that to be
well now it's super tricky because you got 3, and then you got 3 prequels to the original, and then you got 3 sequels to the original.
and
But if
that's
you
just
ever watch them, some people might say watch them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I
yeah,
say watch them in the way they're released because that's the way they were meant to be seen.
right.
It makes more sense watching that way. But I think the OG Star Wars just changed the landscape of movies and especially science fiction, but every movie. I mean, there's no like, CGI at the time, hardly
Oh
any.
yeah. Yeah.
And it just, I mean, it made blockbusters like it made those actually like good movies. Like you would
Right.
go and see a movie. There was, I mean, no one like only nerds at the time watched sci-fi. My dad to this day won't watch anything if it's sci-fi, won't watch anything like that. He said he went and saw Star Wars like twice in theaters when it first came out, that everybody he knew was watching it. And he was like one of those dudes that was just like not into even movies very
Right.
much. That
Right.
was just like, I think it just changed the
Right.
entire
I think it's
landscape of
interesting
pop
too, like
culture.
yeah, I think it's interesting too that you said that your dad's like that way and just not like super into movies or whatever. And then you like obviously very much are. And it just goes to show you is like, you kind of you grow up and naturally like your parents' interests kind of become yours. But like, like obviously I've met your parents and I feel like they definitely pushed all 3 of you guys to be like your own, like very unique individuals and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's something that you're passionate about. Like your brother's real creative and everything too. Like I don't know your sister real well, but your brother's real creative, does photography, that sort of stuff, editing, like and it's probably not something that either of your parents were interested in, but both
Yeah.
of you guys got very interested into interested in it and were able to, like do something pretty cool with it. But
Yeah.
so my list is going to pale in comparison because I feel like you're able to give so much more detail on a lot of this stuff.
So let me real quick, if I can say, that
Right.
list is very subject to change. You could ask me tomorrow. It'll
Right.
be except
Yeah.
for with the exception of Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. By
Right.
the way, made by the same guy. So, but
Gotcha.
with the exception of those 2,
Yeah.
I think the other 3 will change. You
Right.
ask me in 2 hours, I'll give
Yeah.
you 3.
Like you
So,
could watch another movie as soon as we get off of here and
yeah.
okay, that's one of the 5 best movies that I've seen. But
Yeah,
it's so
exactly.
hard. I feel like it's so hard for you because you've got such this like giant pool of information and movies and everything that you've seen in your lifetime where it becomes increasingly difficult for you versus me, who like I'd like to say that I've seen a good number of movies, but it's not like super, super long. But so again, this is like don't like if you want to come for me, go ahead.
No.
Or whatever, but it's like again, these are my 5 best movies that I've seen. To me, my personal number 1 is Shawshank Redemption, and it's just, I mean, one, any movie with Morgan Freeman, phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Like
Denzel.
now it's tough because it's like, yes, that falls into like the list of, like best movies that I've seen, probably one of my favorites, but there's like a completely different category of movies that you could watch over and over and over again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
I don't think
exactly.
anybody's gonna rank the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie in the top 5 of all time, but it's one of those that you personally could watch over and over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Shawshank
That's,
is not that way. Like it's one of those things like I maybe watch it once a year. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, it's tough to watch.
I don't think I watched it until I was like a sophomore in college, maybe. So it was only like 7 years ago.
Mhm.
But just such a phenomenal movie. Like,
Hands down, the best Stephen King adaptation too. Because I mean, between that and The Shining,
yeah.
everything else is like ranges from pretty good to just the worst movie ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then again, in no particular order, but I love Good Will Hunting. Phenomenal.
Mm.
How do you like them apples? Like, just phenomenal stuff, top to bottom. Like the whole like Rain Man type of thing with the chalkboard and coming through and the math thing and like,
And then,
and you've seen everybody kind of do like some sort of spoof on it. Like, do you watch Community?
yeah,
Okay, in Community, there's an episode where Troy walks by the chalkboard,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
complicated problem, and then he ends up like fixing the water fountain, and that was just hilarious to me because it's like you're not going to make that reference in a 2010s sitcom type of show, whatever, if it's not just a phenomenal,
Oh,
really
and Robin Williams, dude,
Robin Williams, rest in
unbelievable.
phenomenal performance in
To
that
think
movie.
that guy is like the genie in Aladdin and
Oh
also
yeah,
this dude
I
is
know,
just the
and
range he has is
yes,
insane.
phenomenal. Um, this is one of my personal favorites. And this might be, I don't know if this would be in anybody's, but I love Silver Linings Playbook. And
Dude,
and
it's a
so
banger.
I actually watched that for the first time thinking that it was going to be a comedy because
Yeah,
like on and same thing, probably watched it like sophomore year of college, like probably 6 years.
I think it came out in 2012 or 13.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. And I think I watched it within like a year of it coming out. Like, just watch from home. Didn't watch. Obviously, I haven't seen any of these so far, like in theaters, which I know changes a lot of things for a lot of
yeah,
people depending on the experience. But man, for me, like I watched it thinking it was going to be a comedy, and then I was like, there's like nothing really funny about this, but I love that. Like I'm like sitting here watching this, and at first I was like, I haven't laughed yet, and we're 20 minutes in, and then like I start to see kind of some of the like twisted, like a little bit darker humor, and I just like the way that it like addressed mental illness and like how that stuff is handled and how there are a lot of people that don't understand it. And then there are a few special people like in life that do understand it and can be like game
yeah.
changers kind of thing for you. And just love Bradley Cooper in that. Phenomenal.
Dude, everybody in that is so good. Chris Tucker, dude, is hilarious in it, but like also really good as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Like it shows he can be a good dramatic actor as
Oh
well.
yeah. Like a
And Robert De Niro, dude.
Yep. And that's the thing too, is like, these movies that I've named so far, you talk about like range and everything like that for some of these actors, like, just phenomenal. Next one, kind of a pop culture classic, Breakfast Club. Love Breakfast Club. I know some of these answers are a little bit basic, but I just love it. Like when it all comes together at the end and he walks out, throws that fist.
Oh, dude, the music. Yes.
It's just so good. And it's like, um, and you know like a lot of people, oh, it's the 80s, it's high school, whatever, like that sort of thing, but like there are relatable aspects of it because you talk about like just everybody from a different walk of life and everybody's kind of got a different trajectory, but there's always going to be a time and place where you end up in that same place in life at the same time as somebody else, you know what I mean? And I just think that part's really interesting about it. But love that movie. Again, kind of a basic answer, but I mean, it's
No, I
phenomenal.
love it. There's a reason, but see, there's a reason that everyone's like, oh, it's basic.
Yeah,
Like if someone says, oh, my favorite movie is The Godfather, there are some people that'll be like, oh, that's like, it's like there's a reason it's so popular, and there's a
right,
reason it's considered the best movie ever. There's a
right.
reason Breakfast Club is iconic, and it's not
Yeah,
because everyone is trying to be cool by thinking it's good. It's because it's
Right.
actually really good.
Yeah, because it's actually really good. And then you talk about like obviously like the the music and everything like that. Like every aspect of that movie is really good. And then my last one, and like this one is the one on there I was telling you about. It's kind of like it's like okay, nobody's gonna, but it's just like I can't not die laughing when I watch this movie, and it's Super Troopers. And I
Oh yeah, it
it's
is.
like a like I don't know. I didn't look at any of these movies like Rotten Tomatoes score or whatever, but that one's got to be
I'd assume that one's the lowest of your
but it's just I remember watching that. I remember watching that, and I probably shouldn't have been watching it, but I remember watching it my junior or senior year of high school, and I just thought it was so freaking funny. And then like the references, the references from that movie come up so often, like
Oh,
in
we did at camp. You, me, and Titus were
yeah.
meowing people.
I know, and like just stuff like that is just so funny, and like it makes me a little bit sad that there's gonna be a generation here before too long that don't understand references to that movie,
Yeah,
because it's
I
just
know.
it's so funny. Like you can't, like the meowing thing, the liter of cola, like all that sort of stuff is just like it's just it's hilarious. He eats
I
that whole
miss
bag of
when,
weed, like man, it's so
dude,
funny.
and I miss when movies could just be stupid and
Yeah,
funny. Like
yeah,
Austin Powers, there's
yeah.
never going to be an Austin Powers movie
Right,
like that. And
right.
so, I mean, like movies that were just like so dumb, and that's
Yeah.
what kind of made them funny in the first place. And also, is like nowadays, if people were to make movies like that, everyone will call them cheesy or corny,
That's
whatever. And it's
insane.
like
And like
that's
half
not a valid criticism. Like
yeah,
unless it's trying to be like a drama.
right.
But like if it's corny and a comedy, then that's funny. That can be
Yeah.
funny.
So we talked a little bit, you said The Big Lebowski was your favorite movie. Like, is that current, like at the moment?
Yeah, it's been my favorite movie since about halfway through. Well, a little after high school, I would say.
Gotcha.
So it's been my favorite movie for probably about 7 6 7 years.
Okay. So
I
before,
watch it no less than 2 3 4 times a year. Uh, it's
so
just so rewatchable. It's the perfect. I mean, because the more you watch it, the funnier it actually gets. And most
right,
comedies are the opposite of that, where it's
yeah,
like, well, I mean, not really the opposite, but like you can watch, like we mentioned Anchorman on the phone earlier. We were talking about that. It's like I thought Anchorman. I also thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
yeah,
You watch it 10 times, it's still funny, but then
yeah,
somehow you hit that 11th time or whatever time it is,
yeah,
and you're like, okay, this is
yeah,
kind of stale, whatever.
yeah.
And so, but with the Big Lebowski, it's just every every word, every line has new meaning when you watch it. And
Mhm.
then you go and watch, like the actors in it have talked about the TV version is almost funnier because they had to come up with words instead of cursing, and it would
Yeah,
just be nonsense that they say
yeah,
instead of like, then it makes no sense. It just makes you laugh. And
yeah.
so yeah, that's definitely my favorite movie ever.
I feel like, and there are a lot of movies that do fall into that category of what you're talking about, like with Anchorman. Like I think every mid-20s dude would say at some point in their life that Step Brothers was the funniest movie that they've
Oh
seen.
yeah, yeah,
And I love Step Brothers, don't get me wrong, but Step Brothers used to be one of those things that I would watch 2 3 4 times a year. Now if I watch it once, I'm like, okay, like I remember why I thought this was pretty funny. Like it's still pretty funny. Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things that's rewatchable, but it's not one of those like, oh, I've got to watch it kind of things.
yeah.
If I had to pick my favorite, like just like a timeless kind of like thing I could watch over and over again, it'd probably be Bench Warmers. And but
No,
I feel like that question is very different for everybody too, because it's like okay, like do you want to laugh, like do you want to rewatch something because you want to laugh at it or whatever, or do you want to rewatch something because like how good it is, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
like that's every
hmm
aspect of it. And yeah, I know Bench Warmers is a little corny and everything like that, but it's just like it's so funny. I mean, like to have Napoleon Dynamite in it, uh to have David Spade in it, like it's just like it's just so funny, like one of those classics. And I'd say that's probably been my favorite for a few years. The first, I'm curious, I want to hear your answer on this, and then we'll kind of get into the next thing. But the first movie I can remember being my favorite movie was probably a toss up between Toy Story, which I was really young, but like
Yeah.
that didn't miss like us. Like you're only a couple years younger than me. That didn't
Oh
like
no, Toy Story
uh,
was 99. So I
yeah,
mean,
Toy Story, and then Space Jam almost simultaneously because everybody
dude,
wanted to be. I mean, like I was by the time I watched Space Jam, like Jordan was already playing with the Wizards. Um,
yeah,
but and so he was washed at that point. But even still, it's like it was just such a good movie. Like it's like the first time that I had really seen a movie where it was, and they've tried to do it since, and some have had success and some have failed. But I mean, they had a movie with NBA stars in it. Like it wasn't like it was like second team guys. I mean, these were like all league guys. But
yeah, and it's not even like we mentioned Uncut Gems. Kevin Garnett's been retired for a few years, so it's
right.
not even like he was the biggest dude in the league for a couple years
Oh
and
yeah.
one of the most popular ever. And he
Mhm.
was in a movie 5 years after he retired. You're talking about in the middle of their
In their
careers.
middle of their
That
career.
would be like
Crazy.
like I mean, that's just insane. That's like Kevin Durant, LeBron,
Right.
like
I don't even know if
Luca,
I throw LeBron into
all
that
these
category
dudes
right now because it's too.
at like the same time though. Imagine like it's not like just Jordan, but it's like they had like Barkley, Robinson, like
Yeah.
all these
I
dudes.
mean, those were dudes that like were not old. Like towards like
No,
when Jordan made that, that was like in the middle of that second run that they had to three
yeah,
champions.
that was
Crazy
93, I
to think
believe, is when
about.
it came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and I mean Barkley had only been in the league for, like a few years at that point. I think he might have been a little older, but it's like, and it really is crazy. But those are the first two that I can really remember being my favorite movies. So what is the first movie that you remember being your favorite?
So mine is the same. I feel like any dude from ages like 25 to 30, their first favorite movie was Space Jam.
Yeah.
And so that was also, but I specifically remember there's this movie. It was a spin off. It came out the year after Toy Story. So we have very similar favorite movies. It
Okay.
was called Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. And it was an animated Buzz Lightyear movie. Okay. This thing came out when I was 5 years old. I obviously, I don't think it went to theaters or anything like that. I
Right.
wouldn't have remembered it in
Yeah,
theaters.
because I've never heard of
Um,
it. And I was a big Buzz Lightyear fan.
yeah.
So like
Okay.
for me
So
to
it's
have
just
not
like this.
heard of it, like
I think they
it's
were trying to
so
make it an animated like spin-off
yeah.
series of like because like it's like animated Buzz Lightyear just doing off in space with a crew or whatever. I think they were
Yeah.
trying to make like a few movies out of it, whatever. But I specifically remember being from about 5 to 7, 8 years old. Every time I would go to Blockbuster, every single time I would get Space Jam and I would get Buzz Lightyear Star Command. And I'm talking about watch those junks like 3 times a year going to Blockbuster, getting those same movies, if
That's
not more. And
that's
so it was Space Jam for me. Just loved it. And like I wasn't even a basketball fan at the time, but I mean
right.
I knew. I mean, who didn't know Michael Jordan?
Right, exactly.
And
Yep.
so and Looney Tunes. It was like I was
Yeah,
watching that before I ever
that's true.
watched Space Jam.
Yeah, that's true.
So both of those very vividly remember.
You want to talk about them doing that movie the right way? I mean, like they appealed to like everybody. Like,
Oh yeah,
people that were our age then were gonna tune in because it was Michael Jordan, and
yeah,
then they also got like the group of like us that were like young, like little kids then
yeah,
by putting Looney Tunes in there. Cause I remember watching cartoons every Saturday and when
yeah,
cartoons were actually
exactly.
good.
Well, and then you got the parents don't mind watching it because also Bill Murray's in it.
Right.
Like, dude, it's like
You
that's
can't
for the
go wrong with
dads.
a Bill Murray movie, you know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, it's like that's for the dads to take their kids. It was like, all right, we'll
exactly.
throw some Bill Murray if you take your kid to see this movie.
Exactly. So we talked before when we were kind of like getting ready for this for the show and everything. And we talked about how like sports or pop culture moments can kind of define like who you are as a person. And you said you had a few that you wanted to share with me.
So yeah, well, first of all, this one is like a testament to how loyal of a fan I guess I was even as a little kid. In
Right.
2000, the year the Ravens won the Super Bowl, my entire mom's side of the family is from Baltimore.
Okay.
Um, my uncle up there, he died when I was like 12. He had cancer, but he was like he never had kids, but like he would take us to vacation like all over the place. He had season tickets to the Maryland Terrapins football,
Yeah.
season tickets to the Ravens every year, and season tickets to the Orioles every year. And
Mhm.
so there was a game in 2000 that the Cowboys were playing at the Ravens. And so we were we would go to my grandma's and visit her like we'd be there all summer and then like without our parents and then go for like sometime around Christmas.
Yeah.
So obviously my dad is a huge Cowboys fan. So that year we were trash, but the Ravens were good. And so I remember, so all of us went. It was like freezing cold in December, and my mom was like painting my face, like our face, like my sister, my brother, and me. And so my brother and sister had like half their face purple and gold, and the other half silver and blue for Ravens and Cowboys because their dad likes Ravens. And so when my mom got to me, then I told her I didn't want any purple because I just wanted the Cowboys because that's that was my dad's every team and that was my team at the time. So I was 5 years old and like refused to even wear like they had a blanket and I didn't want the Ravens blanket. I would only put the Cowboys blanket on.
Right.
And I was like 5 years old and I went to the game and we got washed. It was like 28-3, something like that. It's like the best.
That was when we had like Quincy Carter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a Quincy Carter jersey, not then, but retroactively. But yeah. So I mean, yeah, we sucked, but I just remember like being like a diehard Cowboys fan at like 5 years old, and that one was like huge because after that, I just wanted to watch the Cowboys whenever I could.
Right.
And like we'd go to church every Sunday, and my dad every once in a while, like if we had a big game, this is before like recording stuff, you'd have to put a VHS in the tape, like and record it on that. And so if we had a big game, like every year when we played the Colts, and then we would stay home from church, and my mom would be so mad at my dad. And he'd be like, "Oh no, come on, it's a big game," or what? Or he'd be like, "Oh, we'll meet you at church, at halftime or whatever." And no, we just watch us play. Yeah. So ever since that moment, I was a big time. And then I would say another moment that really, I guess, was when Star Wars Episode 3 came out because the original Star Wars came out in the 70s, and then by the Episode 6 was over in like the mid 80s. And so they didn't make another one until 1999. The Phantom Menace came out. Obviously, I couldn't watch a movie at age 4. I couldn't watch Star Wars. And then Attack of the Clones came out in like 2001. So I was only 6 at the time. I still probably watched that one way too early. I was probably like 7 when I watched it. But I remember 2005, I was 10. That's when Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, came out. And lots of people don't like it. Some people like it. But I'm talking about we rolled probably 20 deep to the movie theater. Like, all of us are within the ages of 8 to 13 years old with like our fake toy lightsabers we used to beat each other with, dude. So nerdy. Like every friend I had, like our moms just all brought us there and like dropped us off at the theater. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon the day it came out, and like it was just like the best day of our lives at the time because we got to see the new Star Wars like in theaters the day it came out. So that was huge. And then I don't remember the exact year. You'll probably know because you with the Spurs. It was one of the years the Spurs were in the finals.
Okay.
In the earlier 2000s, I want to say. When was it? 2007.
Did they win?
No, I don't believe. I'm not sure.
I know that there was a stretch there where the Spurs were in the finals like every other year there for a little bit.
So it was one of those, and I just so happened to catch like, just my uncle was watching it up in Maryland for whatever reason. I just watched it, and for some reason, just something clicked, and it was like, okay, I think I like basketball now. Yeah. And so I had a best friend back home who was a Celtics fan, and so I just started watching the Celtics fan because he did, just watching with him. And that's kind of when I became a Celtics fan. Yeah. But it was actually like watching the Spurs, like with Duncan and all them. Yeah. I remember like laying on the couch with my dad on Saturday afternoons and just watching the Cowboys, and loss after loss after loss. And it was like, and I like at the time, like even young, like I couldn't figure out why he enjoyed watching them, because at that time it was like I was little. I didn't play football growing up. I could not figure out why any of that was interesting. And then I remember like, I was like a Cowboys fan pretty loosely, just because it was like, that was who my dad rooted for. And like I had some gear and stuff, but I didn't really watch religiously. And then, obviously Romo becomes our quarterback. And like for me, the moment that I knew I was never going to stop watching the Dallas Cowboys was that Romo Peyton Manning classic in 2013. And like,
And everybody wanted to just crucify and roast Romo because he threw the one interception. He threw 500 yards in that game. 500 yards. Our defense was historically
Dude,
bad. It was almost as bad as our defense from this
one of
past
my favorite games all time, hands
ever.
down.
Ever. It
Oh,
was literally Tony Romo against at that time. At that
the
time, you could
MVP.
100% make the argument for Peyton Manning being the GOAT. Now you can't. Now you
Yeah.
can't. But like Peyton Manning was
Well, he was having one of the best seasons in the history of the still to this day, maybe the best season ever
That's what
from
I'm
a
saying. It was like I think he tied the record for passing touchdowns in a season at that time, and it was before the like league had really switched over to this
and
like
he had the most yard. Didn't he get the yards at that point too as
yeah,
well?
it was like it just had a phenomenal year, and it was like Romo threw for like 30 yards more, but had the one interception, and Peyton Manning I think had 480 for like in like 5 touchdowns, and Romo had
Yeah.
like 504 or something with 4 and an interception. It was just was like that was a classic game, and that was one of those that I was like, I'm gonna root for this team until I die.
Next.
It was 2004. Dave Van Horn had been there for a couple years, I think, and he had taken over a program that was in pretty good hands. But and he took it over, and I remember, like just going, like my dad just like picked Dylan and I up from school or something like that, and he was like, "Hey, let's go watch some baseball." And like we had been to a couple baseball games during the regular season, but it was mostly about just going and like hanging out with like people from church and stuff like that. Like it wasn't ever like, oh my God, my brother and I just loved baseball. Well, my dad did. And I remember going, and it was 2004, and we were in a regional, which you go, college baseball goes regional, super regionals, college world series. Well, we're in a regional, and we were in the losers bracket side of things. So we had to take 2 of 3 from Florida State to end up winning this thing. Or no, we had to win 2 in a row is what it was. We couldn't lose again. So we had to win 2 in a row. And the Hogs had a catcher, and his name was Brady Toops. And like Hog fans that are listening to this know exactly who he is. But Brady Toops gets up there as like bottom of the ninth, or maybe top of the ninth. I think even though we were playing at home, we were the visiting team, and he gets up there, bases loaded, just jacks one, grand slam. It was nuts. Like the whole ballpark erupted. Like this place
Yeah.
was packed, whole ballpark erupted, everything like that. And it forced that deciding game, and it gave us all that momentum or whatever. We win that second game against Florida State. I think it was Florida State. I could be wrong on the teams. I just remember how crazy it was watching something like that happen in person, because I've had that happen to me a couple times since. Like I was there when Qualls had to put back dunk against Kentucky. Like there are moments like that you'll just never forget. My brothers got to rush the field twice at Hog football games. It's like
When you just watch them and you're like, you feel like you're part of history at that
that's what I'm
point.
saying.
Like I don't know if you remember when Tennessee, when we played Florida, I think 2016, Josh Dobbs last year, and we were down 21-3 at halftime and came back and won the game. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs and couldn't hear my voice.
Yeah.
Like Neyland Stadium was shaking the ground, and it was
Yeah.
like I just was like, I'm watching one of the greatest football games in the history of Tennessee football right now.
Right.
Here.
That's what that baseball game was to me. And like most, I was 10, maybe 11, like most 10, 11-year-olds are at those games, but not watching them. And I remember watching them like so intently, and my dad like coaching us up on like situations and stuff like that. And Toops gets up there and hits that grand slam or whatever. And we go on to win the regional and win the super regional and go to the College World Series for the first time in like 20 years or something like that. I don't know. It had been a really long time, but and then, and that was like kind of what got me hooked on Arkansas sports. And then that moment came full circle. And this is really cool. Like this is one of my favorite stories to tell. And some people know it and some people don't. But so Brady Toops is the guy who hit the grand slam. Toops was a phenomenal catcher, not a great hitter, but phenomenal catcher defensively, everything like that. He gets drafted by the Cardinals, so he stays pretty close to Fayetteville and everything like that. He gets drafted by the Cardinals in like the 10th round and bounces around the minors for a few years. Well, then he becomes a Christian music artist. So yeah, it was crazy, right? Like I had no idea that was even something that he like did or whatever. he becomes a Christian music artist. I didn't know that because like when he hit this home run, it was 2004.
Yeah.
And he bounced around the minors for like 3 or 4 years and then was done in like 2008, like retired, even though it's weird to like say somebody retired when they, never made it to the big leagues. But anyway, that's not a knock. Very few people get to do it, but, and then the moment comes full circle, 2014, Dylan and I, my brother working at camp, and they're, like they do the all staff day, and they do the big concerts and everything like that. Well, before they had like the main concert, I don't remember who it was. Brady Toops comes out there.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I like literally like I punched Dylan and I was like, dude, what? Like we had no idea. I was like, dude, what? And so I'm like, I'm not like freaking out because like, but I also had this moment where I'm like, I'm the only person in here that knows who this dude is. Like me and my brother. Like yes, they introduced him and they were like former catcher for the Cardinals, Razorbacks, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Nobody cared. But Dylan and I are like, oh my God, like this guy was a like defining part of my childhood. And so I told Dylan, I was like, come on, man, like we're going. Like, and so we like waited around like backstage, like total groupie kind of thing. And I don't even care. I have no shame, but I told him, I was like, dude, we were there. And he was like, what? I was like, dude, we were there when you hit that home run. Like, I'll never forget that for as long as I live. Like, and after they won the series and everything, they ran around the field. Like they did a lap around the field, like high-fiving fans and everything like that. And I'm still to this day pretty positive that he like took his wristband off and set it right in front of me and my brother. I don't know for sure that it was him, but it was just like so cool because we got to like share in that moment together. And then I got to like go and talk with him. And I was like, dude, like you're the reason that I'm a Razorback fan. It's not just because I'm in Fayetteville, but it was like you are the reason that is a huge part of who I am. And so that part was pretty cool. He was really appreciative of it and everything like that. And so yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Like usually most of that stuff doesn't come full circle, but there it happened to. So
hey, yeah. To touch on that, because one of my also probably one of my defining moments as a Cowboys fan was when we got Terrell Owens, 13 years old. I remember being so hyped. Like I like called my dad while he was at work when I found out. He was like so pumped because he went to UTC, he went to University of Tennessee Chattanooga. And so I mean, even before, like on aside of that, like I love cocky players and he's the cockiest player of all time, probably.
No doubt.
But I remember and then him like beating Michael Irvin's record in 1 year, like with Romo and all that junk, and just like they had an immediate connection. I wish he was a Cowboy for the rest of his career, but I just remember being so hyped. But so like all the stuff that happened with him in the Hall of Fame, they kept him out literally because they don't like him. When statistically he's like top 3 in every.
No doubt about it.
If you have him lower than 4 all time, you're an idiot. Like literally, you can't deny how good he was, even if you hate him.
Mm-hmm.
He was. So he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is insane to me because that's like whatever. So he decided when they finally let him in, I don't know if it was like his second or third year, he had his Hall of Fame acceptance speech in Chattanooga at the school's arena. And so I got to go. It was it was free for everybody.
Yeah.
And so got to see like him do it, like came around, like got fist bump from my dude, and like probably my all-time favorite football player. And it was like so sick that like he would like come back to like this little tiny, like I mean like our city's fairly big, but like the college is small. He's the only notable person.
When you talk about him having played in San Francisco and in Dallas, like it's like, dude, you're playing in California and Dallas, like those are huge like markets and everything like that. And then he comes back to Chattanooga to do it. That's pretty special that you guys be able
and it was just awesome because he was like, I was like when he did that was like 2 years ago or whatever. So I'm like I'm old enough to not be like just
right.
I just like was staring, like I just couldn't believe that I was like in the same room as my favorite player of all time.
Yeah.
And it was just just like those moments are insane. Like it's so cool, like sports like can do that for people. Like and like I was, like and that was one thing. That's one of the things like I like about movies is that like sports is like the unifier like in America. Like you can find somebody, nothing about like I have like Kayla's friends is like their boyfriends and husbands. It's like we have nothing in common except for, oh my goodness, this dude likes the Vols or the Cowboys or Celtics, whatever it is. It's like that's all we talk about when we see each other because it's like that's all that matters. And like for me, like it's like movies are like that, but nationally, like there's nobody in like Turkey who's like cares about the NFL. But like I have followers from Indonesia, from like freaking the Middle East, from like all over Europe, like that some of them don't even speak English and we like hit translate on each other's like tweets, like
Right.
talking about movies. It's like with movies, like anybody you can put subtitles on any movie from
Yep.
any region and everyone can enjoy that. And that's I guess one of the reasons because it feels similar to the way that like you and I talk about like sports like with each other. It's like being able to do that with complete strangers online about movies as well is just like a cool thing to be able to have common ground with people
Absolutely.
that you're never going to see. You don't even know their real name,
Right.
and it's just like,
Absolutely.
it's just
No,
special.
I think that's very true. And it just goes to show that like, and it really just goes to show that there are languages that you can speak that get through to people other than just, the words that you say. Like it's like, movies and
Oh
sport
yeah.
and that sort of thing are 100% like a universal language. So, all right, Sam. Well, this has been awesome, man. I've enjoyed this. It's like just diving into all this stuff. And yeah, we went a little bit
Yeah.
long, but what else is new? It's just some guys being dudes and
Guys being dudes, man. And, dudes rock.
dudes
What can
rock.
I say? But
Dudes,
just to sum it up.
dudes rock. But no, man, I really appreciated you coming on and thank you for taking your time tonight and everything.
Yeah, thanks for asking me,
I'll
man. This was
shout
a ton
out.
of fun doing
I will
this.
shout out Sam's Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd right here below, so you can go search those, give him a follow, say what's up. I'm sure he'd love to have you. He tweets way too much during football season, and I will give that.
Yeah, you might want to mute me when the Celtics are playing
Yeah.
the close game.
Yeah,
So.
if once the Celtics make the playoffs and once the NFL season starts, just give them a mute and then set a reminder
Yeah,
for yourself to
yeah.
at some point. But all right,
Yeah, just
I
wait
love
to
you.
summer though.
I love you, dude, for real. It was
I love you,
awesome
man.
talking
Thanks,
with
dude. This
you.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I'll talk to you again soon, man.
All right.
All right.